Have you ever noticed how people decide who you are before you even speak? One step into a public space and judgments begin, quietly, instantly, without mercy. No one announces it, yet everyone feels it. The way you walk, the way you pause, the way you react when something goes wrong. Public life is not neutral ground. It is a silent test. And most people don't even know they're being tested. Every public place has invisible rules. Not written, not taught, but deeply understood by the human mind. These rules are psychological. They are about awareness, self-control, and energy. When you break them, people may not confront you, but something shifts. Respect fades, influence weakens, opportunities quietly close. And when you follow them, something powerful happens. You don't need to speak louder. You don't need to prove anything. People feel your presence before they understand it. This is not about fear of judgment. Fear makes people small. This is about mastery. Mastery of self, because the strongest people are not loud. They are not reactive. They don't demand attention. They command it without trying. They understand that public behavior is a mirror of inner discipline, and discipline is magnetic. Most people believe freedom means doing whatever they feel like, whenever they feel like it. But psychology tells a different story. True freedom comes from control, from choosing responses instead of reacting automatically. When you lose control in public, you give power away, to strangers, to emotions, to moments that do not deserve authority over you. And once power is given away, it is rarely returned with interest. Think about it. The person who remains calm when chaos appears, the one who doesn't rush to explain themselves, the one who doesn't show every emotion on their face. That person feels different, not distant, not cold, just grounded. People trust that energy. They respect it instinctively, because the human brain is wired to admire stability. Stability signals safety. Safety signals strength. Public spaces reveal who is leading their inner world and who is being dragged by it. Many people walk into public life carrying their stress openly, their frustration loudly, their insecurity proudly displayed. They believe honesty means exposure, but wisdom knows that not everything felt needs to be shown. Emotional intelligence is not hiding, it is filtering. It is choosing what deserves expression and what deserves silence. Silence, when chosen consciously, is not weakness. It is power under control. It tells the world, I am not ruled by impulse. And impulse is the enemy of respect. The more predictable your reactions, the easier you are to read. The easier you are to read, the easier you are to manipulate. This is why self-mastery has always been associated with leadership, even when no leadership title exists. Public behavior shapes identity faster than private thoughts. Every time you act with restraint, you reinforce a stronger version of yourself. Every time you resist reacting, you build inner authority. The brain learns through repetition. Act undisciplined long enough, and chaos becomes your default. Act composed long enough, and calm becomes your nature. People don't rise to their goals, they fall to their habits, especially in public. This is where most people fail without realizing it. They believe the big moments define them. But psychology proves it's the small, repeated behaviors that create reputation. How you handle waiting, how you handle disrespect, how you handle boredom. These moments seem meaningless, yet they reveal everything. Public life magnifies them. It turns tiny cracks into visible flaws. The goal is not perfection. Perfection is fragile. The goal is awareness. Awareness turns mistakes into lessons instead of labels. When you become aware of how public behavior affects perception, you stop living unconsciously. You stop leaking energy. You stop giving strangers control over your emotions. And that shift alone changes how life responds to you. By the end of this video, you'll understand the unspoken rules that separate respected individuals from ignored ones. You'll see how small public actions quietly shape destiny. And if you stay until the end, you'll gain something most people never develop: the ability to move through public life with calm confidence, without forcing respect, without chasing validation, and without losing yourself to the noise. Once you understand that public life is a silent test, the next truth becomes unavoidable. Emotions are always visible, even when you think they are hidden. Human beings are experts at reading emotional signals: tone, posture, facial tension, micro reactions. You may believe you're keeping things inside, but the nervous system speaks before words do. And in public, emotional exposure without control is one of the fastest ways to lose personal power. There is a difference between feeling emotions and leaking them. Everyone feels anger. Everyone feels fear. Everyone feels frustration. Strength is not the absence of emotion. Strength is the ability to experience emotion without allowing it to hijack behavior. The moment emotions take control in public, authority slips away. Not because people are cruel, but because the human mind instinctively associates emotional chaos with instability. And instability is never trusted. Think about the moments when someone explodes in public. A sudden outburst, a visible breakdown, an emotional reaction that cannot be taken back. What happens immediately after? People don't lean in with respect, they step back. Even those who feel sympathy also feel distance. The mind quietly says, "This person is not in control." That judgment may last seconds, but the impression can last years. Emotional weakness does not mean being sensitive. Sensitivity can be powerful when disciplined. Emotional weakness is when feelings are expressed without choice, timing, or intention. It is when anger speaks before reason, when desperation shows before dignity, when insecurity demands reassurance from strangers who owe nothing. These moments feel relieving in the short term, but costly in the long term. Psychology shows that the brain assigns status based on emotional regulation. The person who can remain composed under pressure is perceived as higher value. Not because they are better, but because control signals capability. It signals that this person can be trusted with responsibility, influence, and space. Even when no one says it out loud, the mind registers it instantly. This is why strong individuals are often misunderstood. They are not emotionless, they feel deeply. But they have trained themselves to pause, to breathe, to choose. They understand that not every feeling deserves an audience. Some emotions are meant to be processed privately, where they can be understood instead of displayed. Public space is not therapy. It is a stage where discipline is tested. Uncontrolled emotion in public often comes from a deeper place, the need to be seen, heard, or validated. When emotions spill outward, it is often a silent request for attention. But attention gained through emotional chaos is fragile. It fades quickly and leaves behind judgment. Real respect comes from emotional steadiness, not emotional performance. Self-control does not mean suppression. Suppression creates pressure. Pressure eventually explodes. Control means awareness and direction. It means noticing the emotion rise and deciding where it belongs. It means understanding that you are not your feelings. You are the one observing them. And when you act from observation instead of reaction, you reclaim power. There is a quiet confidence that comes from emotional discipline. It changes how you walk, how you speak, how you listen. You don't rush to prove. You don't rush to defend. You don't rush to react. And because you don't rush, people slow down around you. Your presence becomes grounding. Even without authority, leadership energy appears. Public emotional control is also a gift to yourself. Every time you choose restraint, you strengthen the part of the brain responsible for decision-making. You train yourself to respond instead of react. Over time, this becomes automatic. Calm replaces chaos. Clarity replaces impulse. And life begins to feel less overwhelming, not because problems disappear, but because you are no longer controlled by them. The strongest people are not the ones who never feel pain. They are the ones who know when pain deserves silence and when it deserves expression. They do not expose their wounds to environments that will misunderstand them. They protect their inner world because they understand its value. And value, when protected, grows. When you master emotional control in public, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop needing approval. You stop fearing judgment. You stop handing strangers the power to decide how you feel. That freedom is rare, and rare qualities always attract respect, even when no words are spoken. When emotional control is mastered, another challenge quietly appears: the temptation to seek validation. This is where many disciplined people lose their balance without realizing it. They stop reacting emotionally, but they start chasing approval. They begin to measure themselves through reactions, attention, and external signals. And in public, this is one of the most dangerous traps for personal power. Human psychology is simple here. The more someone tries to be seen, the less they are respected. Attention that is demanded feels heavy. Attention that is earned feels natural. When you chase validation in public, people feel the hunger behind it. Not consciously, instinctively, and hunger signals lack. Lack never commands respect. Validation seeking shows up in subtle ways, over-explaining simple actions, talking too much to fill silence, laughing too hard to be liked, showing achievements before they are asked for. Even constant agreement can be a form of begging for approval. None of these behaviors are evil, but they quietly communicate insecurity, and insecurity weakens presence faster than failure ever could. The human mind is wired to value what does not need approval. Confidence that stands on its own feels rare. When someone appears complete without needing applause, curiosity forms, respect grows. Not because they are superior, but because they are not asking for permission to exist. They are simply present. And presence, when unforced, is powerful. Many people confuse visibility with value. They believe if they are noticed, they matter. But psychology teaches the opposite. Value creates attention, not the other way around. When you chase reactions, you hand control to the crowd. Your mood rises and falls based on responses you cannot control. That is not confidence. That is emotional dependency wearing a confident mask. Silence often makes people uncomfortable because silence offers no feedback, no validation, no reassurance. But silence is where true self-worth is tested. If you can remain calm without praise, you are free. If you need constant acknowledgement to feel real, you are still owned by the opinions of others. Freedom begins when approval becomes optional. Public validation seeking also trains the brain in a dangerous way. Each reaction becomes a reward. Each like, laugh, or compliment becomes a signal to repeat behavior. Over time, authenticity fades. Performance takes over. You stop acting from values and start acting for responses, and slowly, without noticing, you lose yourself. Strong individuals understand something crucial: self-worth must be internal before it can be external. When worth comes from within, attention becomes a bonus, not a requirement. Praise is appreciated, not needed. Criticism is observed, not absorbed. This emotional independence creates stability, and stability is deeply attractive in a world addicted to approval. There is also a hidden cost to public validation seeking. The more you seek approval, the more you reveal what controls you. People learn which buttons to press, which reactions you crave, which insecurities shape your behavior. Power shifts quietly. You may not feel it at first, but influence drains away. The most respected people rarely announce themselves. They don't force opinions into every conversation. They don't compete for attention. They allow space. And in that space, others lean in. Silence becomes curiosity. Calm becomes authority. Not because of strategy, but because authenticity has weight. Choosing not to chase validation does not mean isolating yourself. It means engaging without attachment, speaking without needing agreement, existing without needing applause. It means knowing who you are before the world reacts. That inner clarity removes desperation from your energy, and desperation is the loudest weakness in any room. When you stop seeking validation in public, something unexpected happens. People start seeking you, not for entertainment, not for approval, but for grounding, for clarity, for presence. Because in a noisy world full of performers, the one who does not perform feels real, and real always stands out. This shift changes everything. Conversations become calmer, decisions become clearer. Self-respect strengthens. You stop shrinking or expanding based on reactions. You simply remain. And remaining steady, without chasing or forcing, is one of the strongest forms of confidence a person can carry. When the need for validation fades, what remains is the relationship you have with yourself. This is where public behavior becomes deeply revealing. Because even without emotional outbursts or attention-seeking, a person can still quietly disrespect themselves. And when self-respect is missing, others sense it immediately. Not through words, but through tone, posture, and the way boundaries are handled. Self-disrespect in public often hides behind habits that seem harmless. Complaining about life, making jokes at your own expense, speaking carelessly about your struggles, gossiping to feel included. These actions feel normal because they are common. But common does not mean healthy. Psychology shows that the brain learns identity through language. What you repeatedly say about yourself becomes what you believe, and what you believe shapes how you allow others to treat you. Every word spoken in public carries weight, not just for those listening, but for the one speaking. When you minimize yourself verbally, you teach the mind to shrink. When you constantly complain, you train the brain to focus on lack. Over time, this internal narrative becomes automatic, and the world responds to the version of you that you present, not the potential you carry silently. Gossip is another subtle form of self-disrespect. It creates false connection by tearing others down. It feels bonding in the moment, but it erodes trust. People may listen, but they also wonder what is said when they are not present. The mind labels gossipers as unsafe, and safety is the foundation of respect. Once safety is lost, influence follows. Public self-respect is not about acting superior. It is about acting aligned. Alignment between values and behavior creates integrity. Integrity creates trust. Trust creates influence. This chain is invisible, but powerful. Break it at any point, and the entire structure weakens. Maintain it, and your presence becomes steady and dependable. There is strength in restraint. Not every thought needs a voice. Not every joke needs to be said. Not every frustration needs to be shared. Choosing silence over reaction is not hiding. It is selecting quality over quantity. The mind that filters thoughts before releasing them develops clarity, and clarity sharpens character. How you speak about yourself in public also sets emotional boundaries. When you speak with dignity, you signal self-worth. People adjust accordingly. When you tolerate disrespectful jokes or minimize your needs, the signal changes. Others learn how far they can go. Boundaries are not declared. They are demonstrated through consistent behavior. Respecting yourself publicly also means honoring your time and energy, being late repeatedly, overcommitting, agreeing when you want to say no. These actions quietly communicate that your time has little value. And if you treat your time lightly, others will follow your example. Self-respect shows up in punctuality, preparation, and presence. Strong individuals understand that dignity is built moment by moment, not through dramatic gestures, but through small choices. Choosing not to complain, choosing not to overshare, choosing not to belittle oneself for laughs. These choices accumulate. Over time, they form a solid inner posture that cannot be shaken easily. Language shapes reality. When you speak with care, you think with care. When you think with care, you act with care. And when you act with care, people feel safe around you. Safety invites trust. Trust opens doors that force never could. This is how quiet influence is built. Public self-respect also protects your inner world. It keeps your struggles from becoming entertainment. It keeps your growth from becoming noise. It preserves energy for what truly matters. When you respect yourself enough to choose restraint, you gain clarity. And clarity is one of the rarest qualities in modern life. When you stop disrespecting yourself publicly, your identity begins to stabilize. You no longer need to prove. You no longer need to explain. You no longer need to perform. You simply show up as you are, without apology and without arrogance. That balance is powerful, and power, when grounded in self-respect, is impossible to ignore. When self-respect is solid, another quiet discipline becomes necessary, protecting your inner direction. This is where many strong people stumble without realizing it. They learn emotional control. They stop chasing validation. They speak with dignity, yet they still weaken themselves by exposing their goals, plans, and next moves in public. And psychology is clear on this. What is revealed too early often loses its power. There is something fragile about goals before they become reality. They are ideas, not results, and ideas need protection. The moment a goal is spoken aloud, the brain receives a false sense of completion. Dopamine is released as if progress has already been made. Motivation drops, urgency fades. What was meant to be built quietly becomes diluted by talk. Sharing plans publicly also invites unnecessary noise, opinions, doubt, comparison. Even well-meaning comments can damage momentum. The human mind is sensitive in the early stages of creation. Too many voices create confusion. Confusion leads to hesitation, and hesitation quietly kills consistency. This is not weakness. It is biology. Strong individuals understand that silence is not secrecy, it is strategy. They move quietly not because they fear judgment, but because they respect focus. Focus requires energy, and energy leaks when plans are announced before they are executed. Every explanation costs attention. Every discussion drains clarity. Silence preserves both. There is also a deeper psychological layer at work. When you share goals publicly, you place your future in the hands of external validation. People begin to associate you with promises instead of results, and promises create pressure. Pressure can motivate some, but it overwhelms many. Especially when progress is slow and invisible, silence removes that weight. It allows growth without performance. Privacy is power because it protects intention. It gives you space to fail privately, adjust quietly, and grow without labels. Public failure often becomes identity. Private failure becomes education. The difference is enormous. Those who grow fastest are not those who announce the loudest, but those who adapt the quickest. Notice how truly accomplished individuals speak about their journey. They rarely talk about what they are going to do. They talk about what they are doing or what they have learned. Their confidence does not come from promises. It comes from proof. Results speak in a language that cannot be argued with. There is also a subtle danger in public goal sharing comparison. The moment goals are shared, they are measured against others. Progress feels slower. Doubt creeps in. Motivation becomes distorted. Instead of building for meaning, people begin building for approval. The original purpose is lost. Silence protects purity of intention. Moving in silence does not mean isolation. It means selectivity. It means choosing a small, trusted space for reflection and feedback. Not the crowd, not the public eye. Growth requires safety, and safety does not exist where everyone has access to your vision. Psychology also shows that unfinished goals are mentally exhausting when exposed. The brain constantly replays them, trying to maintain consistency with what was said. This creates cognitive pressure. That pressure steals energy from execution. Quiet goals stay flexible. They breathe, they evolve. And evolution is essential for real success. There is dignity in letting results introduce you. No announcement, no justification, just presence backed by evidence. When people see progress without explanation, curiosity replaces judgment. Respect replaces doubt, and the impact is stronger because it is unexpected. Protecting your plans also builds inner confidence. You stop needing external reassurance. You learn to trust your own direction. That trust compounds. Each quiet win strengthens belief. Each private correction sharpens wisdom. Over time, this creates an unshakable sense of self-direction. Silence trains patience. Patience trains discipline. Discipline produces outcomes, and outcomes change lives. This chain only works when energy is preserved, when plans are guarded, when the future is allowed to unfold without constant exposure. Those who master this principle understand something most people miss. Not everything meaningful needs to be seen to be real. Some of the most powerful growth happens unseen, and when it finally appears, it does not ask for attention. It commands it. When silence becomes a habit and discipline becomes natural, one final truth begins to surface. Public behavior is not just about how others see you. It is about who you are becoming. Every moment in public is a rehearsal, not for performance, but for identity. The way you carry yourself when no reward is offered, when no one is watching closely, is shaping your future quietly and relentlessly. Public life is a mirror. It reflects patterns you may try to ignore in private. Impatience shows itself in lines. Ego reveals itself in conversations. Insecurity leaks through posture. Confidence speaks through calm. You cannot fake these signals for long. The nervous system tells the truth, and the truth repeated often enough becomes destiny. Most people separate public behavior from private growth. They believe who they are outside does not affect who they are inside. Psychology disagrees. The brain learns through action. What you practice publicly becomes your default privately. If you allow chaos in small public moments, chaos becomes familiar. If you choose discipline in ordinary situations, discipline becomes automatic. This is why small actions matter more than big intentions. Holding composure when tired, choosing restraint when provoked, remaining respectful when ignored. These moments seem insignificant, yet they shape character faster than ambition ever could. Character is not built during motivation. It is built during resistance. The world responds differently to those who carry inner order. Opportunities find them without force. Trust forms without explanation. Influence grows without announcement, not because they seek power, but because power follows consistency. People are drawn to stability. They feel safe around those who are grounded, and safety opens in sure paths. Public behavior also trains self-trust. Each time you act in alignment with your values, you strengthen the relationship with yourself. You become someone you can rely on. That internal trust removes fear. You stop second-guessing. You stop performing. You stop asking who you should be. You already know. This inner clarity changes how challenges are faced. Pressure no longer feels threatening. It feels familiar. Criticism no longer shakes identity. It becomes information. Praise no longer defines worth. It becomes appreciation. Emotional independence grows. And emotional independence is one of the rarest forms of freedom. Destiny is not a single moment. It is a direction reinforced daily. Public choices are compass points. They guide the mind toward order or chaos, dignity or compromise, strength or dependence. No one sees these choices clearly except you, but the results are always visible later. This is why mastery begins in ordinary spaces, in how you wait, how you listen, how you respond when things do not go your way. These are not small tests. They are the training ground for bigger moments. Life does not suddenly demand discipline. It checks whether you have been practicing it all along. When you align public behavior with your highest self, confidence becomes quiet, pride disappears, arrogance fades. What remains is presence. Presence does not need to be loud. It does not need to convince. It simply exists. And existence rooted in self-mastery is powerful. There is a deep peace that comes from knowing you are consistent. The same values in public and private. The same restraint under pressure and comfort. This peace creates momentum. Momentum creates progress. Progress builds a life that feels intentional, not accidental. People often chase transformation through dramatic change. But transformation begins through discipline in plain sight. Through choosing composure when reaction is easier. Through choosing silence when ego wants attention. Through choosing dignity when shortcuts appear tempting. Public behavior is the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. Walk it carelessly and growth stays distant. Walk it consciously and identity evolves. The future is not built through declarations. It is built through habits displayed when nothing is at stake. Those who understand this move differently. They do not rush. They do not chase. They do not perform. They embody. And embodiment is the final form of confidence. Master this, and you no longer need to protect your image. Your behavior will speak. Your presence will teach. And your life will reflect a quiet strength that cannot be taken away.